The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contests, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/thepodcastingdead.
Happy Walking Dead Monday. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead, and we're here to talk about, The Walking Dead. I think we're going to have more to talk about as the week goes on because there are reports of Madison crossing over and who the masked man with the little sickle scythe weapons was at the end of the last episode, as well as premiere date. So I'm sure we'll have something up here on our page tomorrow, going more in detail with that, which I know a lot of other YouTubers have already covered it, but I just don't really have time on the weekends to devote like they do. So, but we'll definitely speak on it tomorrow. But as for today, we're jumping back on some more Walking Dead What Ifs. And right now what we're doing, it's kind of like our old mail call podcast, if you're familiar with our channel, where we used to answer your questions. Only we're answering your Walking Dead What If scenarios.
I'm telling you, man, Stefan Miller is just our new marathon, man. He is just dropping bombs in the comments section. So we're definitely going to hit some of them, Stefan. You definitely make some really good points and, make some good scenarios. So you want to jump right on in?
Yeah, what you got?
All right. What if Carol was piked instead of Henry? For one thing, I would have been much more disappointed because that was one of the best parts of that season was Henry getting put on a pike.
Yeah, because then we'd have to deal, and I mean no disrespect to the actor, but Henry, for me, and I know for JP, it was a really annoying character. So, for one, if Carol would have been piked, then we probably would have had Henry going on this journey, and we would have had to spend even more unwanted time with the character, and he probably would have been a focal point of the series, to be honest with you, much in the way that Carol is. I don't know if he would have been the main character per se, but much in the way that it's been focusing on Carol and her desperate hunt for Alpha, we would have had to have spent that time with Henry, and so I'm glad that didn't happen.
You think Henry would have let Negan out? Like Carol did? Or do you think he just would have went on that mission himself? And
probably went on that mission himself and failed again. But yeah, I think that we wouldn't have had the awesome Negan-ness. I don't think we would have had. It wouldn't have been. I feel like Henry would have been out for, and it would just been. I feel like it would have just been more of Henry stumbling through the woods and other people having to save him, as we dealt with before he died. Just more of Henry like, I'm going to avenge my mom. Yeah. And then Alpha catching him and then Daryl saving him. And I don't know. And I'm sure they probably would have tried to progress Henry to being more of a force to being reckoned with, but it just wouldn't have flowed well.
Yeah, I definitely don't think Alpha would have smashed Henry like she did Negan. So.
No, I don't think Henry would have wowed her.
Nah. She would have just, used him as a pawn to, whatever means. Or she might have just killed him right then and there.
We probably would have gotten the Lydia sex scene from the comics, though.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know who's going to fill that void now.
I don't know which, in the comics, she was licking Carl's eye socket because she thought it was hot. So I don't know what she would have had with Henry, but I feel like we would have definitely gotten the sex scene that no one wants to see. So I'm glad we got spared from that. But yeah, I feel like Henry would have gotten. I feel like Henry would have become a focal point, and even though it probably wouldn't have been good entertainment, I feel like Henry would have developed into a more established character and more of a threat to the Whisperers. But thank goodness we didn't have to suffer through that.
Yeah, no kidding. Stefan Miller jumping over to Fear the Walking Dead. So he asks, what if Nick had never died? How would that have affected the show, and would it still be as bad as it is now? In our opinion, by the way,
No.
Fear lover. You don't think so?
No, I don't think it would have been near as bad because Nick, what's half of what made that show, at least once we got into season 3. As you know, I personally think season 1 was, I was being optimistic, but it was okay. Season 2, honestly, the whole yacht thing just got a little boring with characters and just things happening that I didn't really care about. And I don't know, just was not interested in season 2. Season 3 absolutely blew my freaking mind at how good it was. And what made it so good was the great cast of characters. And one of the saving graces for the show, I thought, was Nick. I thought he was a great character. I like the actor. I think he did a good job. And so, no, because if Nick was alive, I don't think it would have been so focused on Morgan. You know what I mean? I feel like, it would have been focused on Morgan, but we would have had that Nick dynamic there with him, whereas now it's pretty much just Morgan, whom we love, by the way. I know that JP does, too. We love him on The Walking Dead. We don't really care for him on Fear. But I think it would have been better with Nick, not just because his acting was good, but because the writers would have been forced to have write things a lot differently. I don't think that the flow that they are going with now would have worked with someone like Nick in the fold.
Yeah, man. I mean, he was definitely one of my favorite characters. My worst fear, though, they would have kept him around, and their writing just would have killed the character. You know, I love Victor Strand for many reasons. I mean, just with the material he has to work with now, the character is just about as flat as the show is. So
about as flat as that 3-month-old Mountain Dew in the back of my refrigerator.
Yeah, no kidding. So, I mean, yeah, it would have been great to see Nick stay on the show and, stay the character that we had come to know and love, but if they had just taken the wind out of his sails, taken all his edge away, I mean...
I feel like they would have been forced to, though, because, Victor Strand's a good character, and I like Victor Strand, but he never had... I don't know, he didn't... For me, he never brought to the screen what Nick did, and I know you're not going to agree because you love Victor Strand, but... I like Victor Strand. I think he's a great character, but I think he is a good supporting character, where someone like Nick was a better lead character. And I feel like with Nick around, they would have been forced to have wrote things a little different. But I could be completely wrong, and it could still be absolute crap with Nick in it. But, it's just I remember seeing the tease for season 4 of Fear the Walking Dead with Morgan and Nick meeting, and it looked awesome. You had John, who I loved in the beginning, and now the whole John and June thing gets on my damn nerve. It's the love story that, no one really asked for, and it's just I don't know. They've, molded into one person, one hybrid of the two. Not that I dislike either on their own merit. It's just, I don't know. Sometimes the coupley thing with them gets on my nerves. They're trying to rekindle the Glenn Maggie thing, but with John and June, and it's just not there for me in that way.
Yeah. If Fear the Walking Dead has gotten good at one thing, through season 4 and 5, it's just deflating really interesting characters.
Absolutely. And I really am ready for the truck driver lady to bite the dust. And again, no disrespect to the actress. She's only as good as the material she's been given to work with on this show, which isn't very, just like my opinion with Andrea. As I will mention, if you're new to the channel, you hear me constantly ragging on Andrea because I thought she was a horrible character. However, a great actress. I thought that Laurie Holden, and I still think that Laurie Holden is a great actress, and she's an amazing human being. If you follow her personal life, she's helped stop child trafficking, done all kinds of great things. But the character sucks. She just didn't have much to work with, and I feel... I don't know of the actress that plays the trucker lady. That's how little I care for her. I can't even think of her name off the top of my head. But she may be a good actress, but it's not her acting that kills it for me. It's just the character, just that cliched trucker bullshit. One of my best friends is a truck driver, has been driving trucks now for 15 plus years. And I can tell you, he's not, oh yeah, Jimbo, we going to get on there and get them beer, blah, 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 blah. It's too on the nose with that character. She's not likable for me.
Yeah, and truckers probably were talking like that back in 1972.
And some still do, but not all of them. I know lots of another one of my, honestly, I think about it, one of my best friends is a truck driver, and I probably know 3 or 4 other truck drivers, and none of them are like that. Even truck drivers I meet, because, we have a pilot station right here because we live on a major highway that intersects with other major highways, and it's a place where if you're driving a truck and you're coming on the East Coast, there's a good chance you'll drive through this town. And I've met lots of truck drivers from all over the country at that pilot when I, because I used to live right beside it, so that's where I got gas, coffee, everything. And maybe 1 out of 100 might have somewhat resembled that old cliche.
Yeah, they generally seem to be pretty normal working folk, but.
Yeah, just
another reason to hate Fear the Walking Dead.
It just doesn't do it. I'm just hoping they take her out. But I just remember how excited I was for season 4, man. Because I loved Garrett Dillahunt. I mean, I wanted him to be Negan for the longest time, and which if you're watching Fear the Walking Dead and it's your first time seeing Garrett Dillahunt who plays John, and you're thinking he couldn't play I mean, he's awesome. I mean, he Jeffrey Dean Morgan is Negan, but this guy could have definitely done Negan, as I think Timothy Olyphant. And in the ultimate Negan, as we've said in the past, I think would have been John Hamm. That is like, man, if I could look in parallel universes, I want to see a universe where John Hamm is Negan. I just think John Hamm would have been. Jeffrey Dean Morgan does amazing, and I'm glad he's Negan. He's really grown into the character, and I love him. Couldn't imagine the show without him. But dude, John Hamm as Negan would be a little bit, a stocky John Hamm as Negan would be amazing.
Yeah, I think he would have been great as Negan, man. I want to see John Hamm as a Batman. I think he'd make a great Bruce Wayne, a great Batman.
John Hamm's good in just about anything he does. But anyways, I keep diverting there. But I mean, the thing is, I remember watching the trailer for season 4 and just being stoked. The preview of Morgan tripping Nick up with the stick and seeing Garrett Dillahunt as this quick draw, and I was like, oh, dude, this is going to be amazing. And then the first half, I was digging. I mean, the whole scavenger villain group was kind of meh. I mean, like, they roll up and just sit there and wait for you to die. Like, it's kind of stupid. But I still like the season, and it was very interesting. And then after the mid-season finale, it just went. And then season 5 wins.
Yeah, and that's what's got me so worried now. Like once again, the trailer for the upcoming season of Fear looks awesome. Will it be awesome? I don't know.
I really hope, because sometimes you'll hear writers say that they'll say things like, I don't read articles about my work because I don't want it to affect. I hope that they're not those kind of writers. I really, truly hope that they're spending time on the internet and hearing the complaints that people have on this show, and they will adjust. Because I keep saying I don't like to speak on JP's behalf, but when I do say these are things I've heard JP say.
This is one thing we can agree on, if nothing else, yeah.
But we both, I think, have agreed that, The Walking Dead got a little stale, and then once we got into season 9 and the train kept rolling, it just started getting good again, and we really enjoyed it. Now, we've not enjoyed every episode from season 9 up, and we've not enjoyed every decision they've made, but overall, The Walking Dead's back to being something I'm super excited for on Sundays. So hopefully Fear the Walking Dead can improve somewhat going into the new season.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if the people at the writers' table for Fear the Walking Dead even watch their finished product. Are they like, all right, so it seemed like a cool idea to have this crazy lady poison every single bottle of water in this truck stop, and then people get sick, and then they drive up with a beer truck. That seemed like a cool idea, but watching it, this is just kind of stupid. I mean,
it was so dumb.
Oh, geez.
So dumb.
Anyway, let's get away from. I'm getting depression.
I'm getting depression thinking about having to spend more time with the trucker lady.
Oh,
Bobo.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And I don't know, man. Hopefully Luciana will get some kind of bigger role this season. I forgot she was in last season at certain points, and I mean, she had a really cool role. Like Nick's girlfriend, she came from that camp that used to pretty much sacrifice people to zombies. I mean, it was. I liked her character, and I was interested to see where she was going to go. I could have totally seen her becoming like the badass female lead of the group. And Alicia, another character who I love, not entirely because she's hot, though that might be a point of it. Yeah. But Alicia, I had high hopes for Alicia, and this season, it's like half the shit she says, I cringe. I'm like, oh God, like. And then it's like, I'm putting my weapons down, and I'm going to follow the painting on the trees. And you're like, oh, my God. Which they don't have some. I'm so used to doing Southern accents when they mock other characters. Alicia's like, I'm going to stop fighting, and I'm going to paint the trees. Like, that whole storyline was stupid. I mean, it just.
And really didn't go. I mean, was there ever a point to that? I can't
No, a lot of people thought it was a sign like Madison was still alive. Right. And. No, it just was that guy with the book and his brother, and now Alicia's. I don't know. I'm wondering if she's going to die because of the radiation, because they put a lot of emphasis on that, and then there was nothing in this season to, lead us to think that she perhaps might have radiation poisoning or something.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel, another character we were stoked to see again. Hadn't seen him since the dam blew, and really
shows up with a cat.
Not really doing anything all that cool.
No, and he's such a good. I mean, it's like one of those things where we've seen in the past with that show they've had a lot of trouble keeping him on it regularly because he's a very talented musician and he's just an extremely talented human being. So as extremely talented human beings tend to do, he's got a lot on his plate. I mean, he's playing shows and he's touring and he's doing this and recording and blah, blah, blah. So they've had a lot of trouble keeping him as a regular on the show. So the times when he gets to come back, let's make the most of it. You know what I'm saying? Let's let him shine. Because Daniel, I think it's safe to say, of the remaining cast, is definitely one of the, I think, the majority's favorites. Everyone likes Daniel. Let's utilize that.
Yeah.
I want June to die in a horrible, bad way, and I'm not that I don't. I like June, and I like the actress that plays her. I want to see an unhinged John Dory.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. He's a gunslinger. He's a badass. Let's give him some more badass moments. And no, I'm not talking about shooting a frickin' axe and splitting a bullet. That's the stupidest schnit. That was like the jump in the shark moment for this season for me. So, no, I want to see John Dory just become an unhinged. I'm not unhinged, and he goes insane. We've seen that like too Terminator much. Mode. Right, we've seen that too much on the show. I would just like to see a darker, less friendly John Dory, one that's still loyal to the group but is far less hesitant to put a bullet between your eyes if you threaten the group. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
But anyways, moving forward.
Yeah, and away from Fear the Walking Dead, thankfully. Our good friend Owen, he's a longtime listener, patron.
Love
you, love you, Owen. He says, what if Dwight never betrayed Negan? Would Rick's group have even stood a chance in the war? Still think it's a shame Austin Emilio isn't in the main show anymore. The arc he would have had right now is what made him one of my favorite comic characters. Yeah, I can't argue with that. Dwight, another character just kind of like fell flat on Fear the Walking Dead.
It's so funny. If you go back and you go to our channel, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can find every podcast dating back to the beginning, and you listen to me talking about Dwight on the show. I didn't like him. I didn't even think I liked the actor. I was like, man, he just, I don't know. He's not doing it for me. However, as time progressed, I really came to like the character. I very much misjudged the actor and his ability to play this character. The actor that plays Austin Emilio does a fantastic job. And like, again, in the beginning, I didn't like him, but as the show progressed, I really started liking Dwight. And I was like, man, he played it convincingly. I don't know. Like, originally it was rumored that Garrett Dillahunt, who plays John Dory, before the Negan rumors, after the Negan rumors, it was rumored that he didn't get the part of Negan, but they wanted him to play Dwight. And I was cool with that.
Yeah.
And then that didn't happen, and we got Austin Emilio, and I was kind of like, But as time progressed, I really liked him. And like JP said, now we've got another great character over on Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have seen a scene with, like, Daniel having Dwight tied to the chair, kind of, like, torture scaring him like he was Nick in that one scene. You remember? And
Dwight could have made reference to, man, I don't think there's much you can do to compare to the last time I was tied to a chair, and kind of insinuating his face, because we all do get giddy when they reference the Walking Dead world. But if Dwight never betrayed Negan, I don't know. Let's think about some of the crucial moments. Now, in the end, when he betrayed Negan and gave the group those plans, those were fake plans by Negan, which put them in the very dire situation they found themselves in the finale. So without Dwight, they might not have ever ended up in that situation. Now, remind me, let's go back through the show. What key things did Dwight do that helped them?
Oh, man, we're really having to backtrack here.
I mean, I know that he did, and he tried, but I mean, when Negan showed up at the end of season 7 and they attacked Alexandria and Sasha died and all of that, they found that chess piece that said, I didn't know, or something like that he had left. So that's a situation where he didn't help them.
Right.
I'm trying to think of some crucial moments where Dwight played a big role.
Did he? God.
Well, you know what? No. Let's think. Unless you got one, go ahead. I did think of one crucial thing.
I was thinking about the tainted weapons, but no, go ahead.
Well, that's another thing. Tara would have died a lot sooner because Dwight hit her with that uninfected, untainted arrow, which ultimately saved her life.
Yeah.
So Tara. So yeah. But one crucial thing is don't forget the escape from Alexandria, the mid-season finale of season 8, where he gunned down all those people. And had he have killed Barcode, who ended up being a good character, well, a good guy. I mean, she wouldn't really get enough time with her, to decide if she was a good character or not. But if she would have died, she would have never ran back and told Negan, which would have been interesting at the upper hand that Rick's group would have had without Negan knowing that Dwight was a rat or a mole, I should say. But, Dwight definitely helped them escape in that regard. But, I mean, I think ultimately Rick and them would have still won because Negan's best laid trap for them during that war. I mean, let's forget that. Did Dwight tell Rick about them being on the move? Because, I mean, Rick almost took out Negan all by himself.
Yeah.
And I don't remember him, and I could be wrong. Please refresh our memory in the comments below. But I don't really remember Dwight being the one to tell Rick where they were going. I just remember Rick was up on a hill. He saw him go by and jumped in his car and T-boned the crap out of Negan.
Yeah, I don't remember Dwight having anything to do with that. But it has been a while since I've watched those episodes.
Yeah, I want to go back. I did go back through and rewatch this season. I don't know. It's probably a year ago now. But, I mean, there's so many shows that we watch that it's hard to remember. I mean, Westworld and Vikings and Game of Thrones, which Game of Thrones is over now, but still, just so many shows that I'm going back through and rewatching. I still think they would have won, but there's, I don't know though. I really don't know because there's so many like butterfly effects. I mean, would Dwight have been? Because they caught Dwight. And they put him in the jail cell, and then they had him in the woods after he helped them escape, and then he was with Tara and Daryl and that whole group. And remember, he led the Saviors away rather than let them know that there was an entire group hidden in the woods. And if he were not loyal to them, he would have been like, hey, I've got most of them helpless here in the woods. And then Daryl, everybody would have been slaughtered.
Yeah, I mean, Dwight definitely could have just, nipped that insurrection in the bud in a couple different points. So
I'm gonna say I think they still could have won, but I like old Whitey boy.
Yeah, and I guess the main thing, Eugene, kind of came to his senses and ended up sabotaging those bullets. So.
I'm gonna tell you, they did that great because in the comic there was never really a question. You knew Eugene was still a good guy, but like in the show. I think both of us were pretty. You at the end, I do remember you called it right towards the end of season 8 that you thought Eugene was just going to, pull a 180 and surprise us. But up to that point, I think that you and I both were pretty certain that Eugene was turned to the dark side.
Yeah, man. I mean, Negan gave him bitches and pickles, and that'll sway any man.
I mean, that's how you get me to come to your place of business.
True, that's true. I got a jar
Ladies
of
and pickles
and some good-looking big girls. But yeah. Yeah, I think a good what if would have been what if Eugene had been never veered off from Team Negan.
Oh, then they would have all been dead.
Yeah,
they had him. That was it.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody would have been dead. Everybody except Dwight, which Negan was going to keep alive so that he could know that he essentially caused a mass extinction of a group of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be a good Walking Dead what if, which that's a short Walking Dead what if. What if Eugene never turned back to Team Rick? Well, they would have all died and the show would be focused on the Saviors.
Yeah. All right, but that was a good one. Thank you for that.
Can we say real quick how genius Negan's plan was aside from Eugene betraying him?
Yeah,
because number one, I don't know that I would ever trust people that I just captured from my enemies. It'd have to work a long time for them to gain my trust. But aside from his trust of Eugene, I mean, how genius was his plan? I mean, he had every community. He got them together and then had them dead to rights. I mean, could have straight up wiped out, several enemy factions all in one fell swoop. So other than Eugene's betrayal, what a genius plan.
I mean, he even had like a PA system rigged up.
Oh, yeah.
He had like the theatrics, the whole thing.
Took time to come up with all these fake plans to drop into Dwight's lap, which he knew Dwight would drop to the group. And then, I mean, have genius of a strategy. Just sadly, overestimated Eugene's loyalty.
Yeah. Another good one, man, from Frederick H. 6 days ago. What if, and it's a short one but a good one, I feel like we may have touched on this before, what if Michonne got killed by the governor instead of Herschel? And Frederick also says, love the podcast, by the way, so thank you for the love.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would have been man, it would have sucked that we got so little time with Michonne.
I was going to say, part of me wants to be like, that would suck, because Michonne is again, speaking for JP, just because I've heard him say this a million times, Michonne was one of our favorite characters. I mean, we put her like in our top 3, I think. So to have lost her would have sucked, because we had some amazing moments with Michonne past the governor's last attack that I really would have hated to have not had in the show. I mean, I will tell you, the Michonne-Carl relationship was one of my favorite relationships in the entire show.
Yeah, man. Their dynamic was just second to none as far as that goes.
Yeah, they had good chemistry together on screen, and what I like is it was natural. Like, Michonne started off someone Carl didn't really trust. They had some moments that made Carl start trusting her. Then they became really good friends first, and then she naturally progressed towards that mother role, which she played very, very well. And it just felt like a natural progression. They didn't just rush it in to where, like, 3 episodes later, Carl was calling her mom. Yeah. But then that's like when we got to the, how is Rick going to react to losing Carl? I'm like, don't get me wrong, I want to discuss that. But how is losing Carl going to affect Michonne? I mean, let's not forget that he's basically become her son. I mean, she cares a lot for him. But part of me would be happy to have had more time with Herschel.
Yeah,
I loved old Herschel, man. That's I think Herschel's one of the best characters in this show, period. Just as far as I loved his progression from being just this crotchety old farm owner and to, becoming like the moral compass. But I don't think we would have had, I don't know, man. I just feel like we got more from Michonne. Than we would have from Herschel. But
as much as it sucks, I mean, Herschel was the perfect person to put in that position. He's the heart of the group.
Oh, yeah. I just wish that Michonne wasn't beside him, because you're never going to convince me, and that's fine. People have tried in the comment section, and that's fine, man. But my opinion is not going to sway. The governor wanted to kill Michonne. That's what he wanted for so freaking long. She took his eye. She essentially dismantled this entire empire he had built for himself. Yep. And he's got her, again, I use the phrase, dead to rights, on her knees, tied up with her sword in his hand. There's no way you're going to convince me that if he was going to hack one of them, and some people have said, well, it's because, he knew that Rick and them were closer to Herschel. And no, at this point, Michonne had become close to the group, and he knew enough about them to ask Rick for her back in season 3. Like, that's what he wanted. Bring me Michonne. And Rick didn't do it, so he should have assumed that Michonne meant something to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way you're going to convince me that the governor would not have just straight up hacked Michonne up versus Herschel. I feel like they did it. I just wish they would have had somebody else on their knees beside Herschel, and it would have felt more natural. And it felt like it was done just for that emotional response, which it was, because, man, after that episode, I was like, yo, I'm not watching the show anymore.
Oh, yeah, dude. I mean, you just kind of curl up in the fetal position, and, that was rough. But Herschel was the best person to fill that void. He was. Except for that it was kind of a weird thing, him not. I mean, seemed like he might have killed them both. I don't know. I mean, decapitating someone in your front yard is going to send a message regardless of who it is, Yeah. Whether it's your best friend or your acquaintance you see,
Well, it just shows you're not playing. Yeah. You could have killed and that's the thing, and some people have said before, well, again, I repeat, hey, the reason why he didn't kill Michonne is because he knew that Herschel meant more to the group. He'd been with the group longer. Okay, but at this point, it had been so long, he knew that Michonne was an essential part of this group at this point. He knew that Rick wasn't willing to give Michonne up because he didn't before. And this is the person you want to kill. And I just, and like you said, decapitating anybody. If anything, he would have killed Michonne first. If he thought that, as people have stated, that Herschel meant more to Rick, he would have decapitated Michonne first, and to show he wasn't messing around. And then, if I was in his position and I had that mindset of, hey, Herschel's the most important person to him, Michonne means a little to him, I'm going to kill Michonne first, A, to settle my score, B, to show that I'm not effing around. Yeah. And then they're more likely to comply because, okay, he's just not. But you go ahead and decapitate Herschel and start a war, Yeah. I don't know. Anyways, I digress. I mean, I'm not saying I'm right. This is just how it is in my head. Opinions are like assholes. We all got them. And that just happens to be mine.
Yeah, man. And it also seems like the governor at that time, he was kind of turning over a new leaf, trying to be a better man. Like, Herschel's just this good guy. He's not a soldier. Michonne's a soldier. Just in wartime, I mean, it's more honorable to execute a soldier like that than just...
And with her own sword, too.
Yeah, than, the civilian Herschel who, wasn't out there for blood or anything. So.
But I know that we didn't really answer the question, so getting back on track, man. We just, as you could tell, like yourself, we just love this show, and that's why we started the podcast, is we just love to discuss it. But I think the group's progression to Savage would have been a lot different. Yeah. Because Michonne started off really savage. Mm-hmm. Well, she stayed savage pretty much the whole time, but she became more humanitarian, maybe. I don't know how I want to phrase it, but I mean, she started off a little bit more like, look at her wrong out in the woods, and she'll just chop your head off and be gone with it. Whereas once she got around Carl and all of these other people, she started kind of getting more of herself back, But I think that with Herschel still there in Rick's ear, because Herschel was always the one that could get Rick to think of a more peaceful solution, to think of being a better person and not just go to violence first. I feel like keeping his Gandhi with him as he was traveling, I think that the group would have been much slower getting to, like Aaron. Let's say Herschel was still with them when they met Aaron. I don't know that, Herschel was still with the group when they met Aaron. I don't know that he would have been as okay with Rick tying this guy up and beating the schnit out of him and all of that. I just feel like their approach would have been a little more friendly to other situations, or like the hospital thing. Can you imagine Herschel having to see Beth's dead body?
Oh my God! Yeah.
How heartbreaking that would be for Herschel to see his daughter, And I don't know. I think the group would have been a little bit softer with Herschel. So in a way, it's kind of like they needed to shed that layer of kindness to start becoming the savage, brutal group they needed to be to survive.
Yeah, just like when Dale died,
Oh,
not a safe place to be when you're the moral compass.
No,
that's for sure.
No.
But great question, Frederic. We always love the banter.
Absolutely.
So, James Galagos, and I'm sorry for what I'm sure butchered your name. I know
your last name sounds like an exotic island.
Yeah, but no, we love you, James. We know you've been around for a while, so forgive me, please. And speaking of Beth, he's taking us back to the hospital. What if Beth was never taken by the hospital group? And he elaborates. This means her and Daryl kept going. Daryl never joined with the claimers, so he wasn't there to save Rick, Michonne, and Carl. He would never have met Noah. Carol could have still saved the Terminus captives, so the group might still head to Washington, but would not have gone to Noah's house. Beth and Daryl would still be in Georgia, with everyone else heading to D.C. Even if Alexandria happened, so much would be different. Morgan wouldn't have seen a map with Rick's name. Never gone to find him. Would love to hear you guys' take on this.
There is no take. You basically...
Yeah, I was going to say that's...
That was awesome. You pretty much answered your own question there. I mean, everything you just said makes 100% true sense, because that's... We don't, as much as we didn't like the hospital Beth thing, there were a lot of repercussions of it that set us on the path that and to where we are now.
Yeah, my biggest fear with if this had went down that way, Beth and Daryl staying in Georgia, they would have given them their own spin-off show. It would have just been them chilling in a cabin, drinking moonshine and singing songs
and
for
Daryl
an hour
crying
every week. Yeah. So thank the Lord that did not happen.
Do you think they eventually would have hooked up if they were together long enough?
I think so.
I don't know, though, man. Daryl's been with a lot of people and has shown no interest in hooking up.
I mean,
Daryl is the most asexual human being I've ever met in my life. I mean, at points they were like, I think Daryl's gay. And then they were like, no, but Daryl. And I get, I do get not getting Daryl and Carol hooking up. Because to be honest, as much as in the past we've all been like, oh, we want Daryl and Carol together, they do have a better friend dynamic than I think they would a relationship dynamic. And I like that because, I mean, there are times in life where there are females that you're friends with where there's really no sexual attraction there. You're just two people that meld together well, and there doesn't need to be a relationship and romance. You just click, and her and Daryl click in that regard, and I do like them on screen together in that friendship role. So, but still, like Connie, I was excited for him to maybe finally get his freak on with Connie, and I mean, for all we know, she's still buried under a mountain.
Yeah, and with
a pile of rubble.
The Daryl and Beth thing, I mean, they definitely had like the brother sister dynamic, but it's kind of like Adam and Eve, you're stuck with one person who happens to be really hot for, a month, a year, however long. I think eventually that hungry dog's going to eat, you know what I'm saying?
I fed you enough snakes. Now take my snake or I ain't feeding you no more, Beth. I've been letting you drink.
Don't worry about that venom neither. So, man, we're going to get too raunchy. But
take it back to the barn of pleasures.
Yeah, it's about to go there. Oh, man. But, yeah, that you really laid that one out for us.
I mean, you mapped that out yourself perfectly. I mean, that really is everything that I could think of. Like, that's it. I mean, that you would have had, if they would have never got kidnapped, they would have just kept going, and our group would have never went to the hospital, which means they never would have picked up Noah. Tyrese might still be alive. Tyrese, I think, was destined to die, though, because unlike other characters, Tyrese was not adapting to the brutality that he needed to in order to survive. I mean, his sister just became, a savage, and Michonne has always been a savage, but, she in the apocalypse, she became the savage she needed to be to survive. Rick went from officer friendly to officer bite your throat out. Like, all of our characters started off as these happy-go-lucky, optimistic survivors to being just these brutal, brutal people that you don't cross, lest they destroy you. And it's like Tyrese was never adapting in that way. Like, he never lost. I guess you could say Tyrese never really lost his humanity. I mean, he probably is exactly what Herschel would have liked to have seen for everyone.
Yeah.
He never got used to the killing. He never wanted to kill. And, I don't think he did kill, did he? I mean, let me think. I mean, he didn't kill homeboy that, tried to beat the ever-living shit out of him, but he didn't kill him, even though he could have, and that guy tried to kill him. Like, Tyrese just was not made for this world, and I kind of think that's... And I remember when he died, a lot of people didn't like that. I really liked his death episode. I thought it was good, man.
Yeah, it was out of nowhere, which
you
don't really get that kind of death anymore. And
it was like a premiere, right? That was like the season 5 mid-season premiere.
Yeah, mid-season premiere. Yeah, it sure was.
You didn't expect that, and it's like, I love the tone of the episode. I love the beginning, the foreshadowing. I like the call. I liked everything about it. It's cool that that's Rick's voice on the radio, too. Like when you hear like the newscasts or whatever on the radio, that's actually like Andrew Lincoln with just his British accent talking. But I love that episode. But no, Tyrese would probably still be alive. If Tyrese could have made it to Alexandria, he probably would have survived because he could have been himself in Alexandria. He would have just had to have survived the time on the road, in which they didn't really, after Terminus, they didn't really encounter any other groups. They just kind of met Aaron and then went to Alexandria. So I feel like if Tyrese could have gotten to Alexandria, he would have survived.
I think so too. And it would have been interesting to see how he made out during All Out War. Would he have been a voice of reason like Rick? It's not worth the loss of life. Let's just give them what they want, and blah, blah, blah.
That could have been the turning point for Tyrese, man. Like that, they still had time to, find that happy balance of, you don't have to enjoy it, but sometimes you do. Like we got that with Glenn. Like, so you don't have to resort first to taking lives, but at the end of the day, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And so Tyrese could still be alive if they didn't go to the hospital. Hopefully Beth and Daryl would have made their way to the group. Beth's one of those characters, man. I'm not going to lie. Emily Kinney, who plays her, seems like the sweetest human being. And I on her sign off on The Talking Dead, I almost hated to see her go. I mean, she got to crying, and she seems like a sweetheart. But I didn't really care for the character of Beth. Not really at any point in the show was she ever a character that I really gave two shits about. She
was just kind of there.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, so, you know, I really don't. I would like to say what her role might be if she was still alive, but I honestly feel like if she didn't die at the hospital, she would have died later because she's not someone who makes the best decisions. I mean, she's had several points in the show where she's made some very dumb decisions, including stabbing the leader of this place in the shoulder. I mean, if nothing else, stab her in the neck, the face, something. Like even her death was due to her stupidity, I feel. My opinion.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, too, man, just Tyrese, if he was in that lineup, you think just him being the biggest dude, Negan doesn't know he's a big softie, you think he would have brained Tyrese?
I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think that inevitably, you know, now that you've brought that back up, I completely forgot about the lineup. Inevitably, I feel like if Tyrese would have stayed on the show, Tyrese would have been the one that Negan would have killed. But then again, you could have had some, because there was a lot of stuff they left out from the comics. Like, it was funny because in the beginning, the reason why Negan in the comics, slight spoilers, but the reason why Negan couldn't pick who he wanted to kill, where each one had a reason. It'd be you know, when he got to Heath, he was like, I'm certainly not a racist.
Yeah.
And then he would get to, like, you know, Michonne and, or, you know, whatever female and be like, well, I'm certainly not a sexist. And then, you know, I can't have everyone thinking I'm a racist. And they left a lot of that out. But, you know, with Tyrese, I feel like inevitably Tyrese would have still gotten the bat. Like, even, I just feel like that's the writing direction. And plus, if Tyrese were able to stay the moral compass, like after Herschel died, Tyrese could have taken more of the moral compass route. Seeing him die would be that much sadder. But I'm not going to lie, as much as I miss Abraham, he kind of was the perfect candidate because it's like, I don't know. I thought when we said we thought it might be Abraham, I was like, I could deal without Abraham, I think, even though we love the character. And I do miss him on the show. But, man, it just was heartbreaking. I mean, the second you saw him say it and it was Abraham's face, my heart just dropped to my asshole.
Yeah. I can't think of who, like, if I got to pick who he took out that I would miss the least. I don't even know, like, was Aaron in the lineup?
Who?
Aaron?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe Aaron.
I wouldn't have took Aaron because I love Aaron now, but I feel like at that point he hadn't gotten to be a character that we really had. We didn't really have enough time with him to love him in a way that the death would impact us the way it did.
Right.
I mean,
and it would have been a cop-out as far as the show goes.
They needed to show out the gate that this guy won't messing around, and he had to take out a fan favorite. But yeah, I feel if I had to, who would you? That's a good Walking Dead what if. We'll throw out our own in here. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a what if. Alternate scenario, you're writing the show. Who are you picking for Negan to kill? Would you stick to it ending up definitely being Glenn? Would you narrow it down to just one person? How would you have done that if you were writing The Walking Dead?
Man, this is kind of taking us back. I remember we had like months to speculate on this, and I know for a while we were saying that like Daryl would have been perfect because no one would see it coming.
Yep.
You know, he was still he's still popular, but he was still like the uber, you know, you kill Daryl, we riot guy. I mean, I definitely think that would have put a lot of people on their asses just as far as what the just happened. You know what I'm saying? And
if you didn't know that Rick, now if you knew Rick was leaving the show, you don't kill Daryl because you got to have a new lead.
Yeah.
If I were writing this with the mindset that Andrew Lincoln's going to stay on the show, I would have picked Daryl. Not that I didn't. It's not. Well, actually, no. If you go back, I think like season 7 and 8, I hated Daryl, but I love him now. Loved him before. I had a little space there where I thought his character just sucked because he was underutilized and he made a lot of really dumb decisions considering him and Rick were always, you know, you're my brother. And then he constantly went against everything Rick wanted to do. But I love him now. But Daryl getting killed season 6, think about it, man. That character was flying high. He was well beloved. Just a great character. I mean, it would have really shown you like this new Negan. This Negan guy is not playing, dude. And I mean, it would have been brutal. I feel like Daryl would have been a good candidate for it.
Yeah, thinking back, man, I remember I was convinced it was going to be Carl because I saw some YouTube video where they were scientific with the way like Negan was moving. They examined shadows in that scene. I was just like, yeah, it's got to be Carl. Like, the evidence is there. But, of course, you know, they picked a much stupider way to kill Carl.
I hate that they keep having Negan, though. And maybe he wasn't going to. But, you know, they've had him at least twice this season, mention you don't kill kids. And that was mentioned even with Carl.
Yeah.
You know, when that kid was like, yeah, I heard you killed Carl Grimes, blah, 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 blah. And then Negan was like, you know, you don't kill kids, you know, type deal. And it's like, but you were. I mean, you know, granted, you know, one person argued, and I went back and watched it, that, you know, we know that he's already killed a kid even before that, because Jesus mentioned that he came to the hilltop and they killed a 16-year-old kid named Rory. Well, if you go back, Negan wasn't there. Jesus said that Negan sent some of his men.
Yeah.
And so that definitely sounds more like Simon. But, you know, I mean, he straight up at the end of season 7 was drawing back to hit Carl, unless he's theatrical, unless maybe he was going to, like, stop right above his head. You know, I don't know. But
it would have been an epic fake out, but it looked like he was getting ready to, you know.
swing for the fence.
Yeah.
So, you know, but, and I love Negan, just saying. But, yeah, probably Daryl. Would you have still had Glenn die, though? Would you have given there? Would you, you know, because the actor, Stephen Yin, just is really trying to distance himself from the show, which I hate. But
yeah.
What do you think? Would you still have had, because even the actor said that he had to die. It was such a gnarly death and such a iconic moment in the comics that, like, it had to happen on screen. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think that had to happen. It was just a fixed point. You know, there's no getting around it.
Yeah. How would you have done it? Take me through the JP writing. Would he have killed Daryl first and then in the same way, or would he have actually killed Glenn first, and perhaps Daryl's reaction is what gets Daryl killed?
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like Daryl would have had to have a reason to swing on Negan. I think killing Glenn, killing anybody, Daryl was going to swing on him.
Right. So you feel like Glenn first.
Yeah, Glenn first, and then he's like, "Oh, you want to play?" And then, you know, just bashes his head in.
A new player enters the arena. I feel like you're right. I feel like Glenn should have been the first, because then watching the show, you'd be like, "Oh, they kept it just like the comics." Mm-hmm. But then then Daryl gets killed, and you're like, "What the?"
Yeah.
You know, that would have been a sweet fake. I mean, they did a good fake out in the sense of Abraham, and we thought, oh, Glenn's in the clear, and then Glenn died. But how much more of a fake out would it have been to have had Glenn killed, and, you know, us comic readers and even people who don't read the comics but read articles would have been like, oh man, they went the comic route. Like, that won't really no big surprise. We thought it would, you know, Glenn was the most likely candidate. But then something happens and Daryl dies. I mean, even if he didn't beat his head in with a baseball bat, if Daryl would have swung at him and then Negan would have been like, nope, and pulled that pistol he took from Carl and shot Daryl in the head, you would have been like, what the fuck just happened? You'd have lost your shit, you know?
Yeah, I feel like in that, mid-season finale, we should have seen, you know, knew he killed Glenn, and then Daryl swings on.
That was the season 6 finale.
Was that you're right.
Because remember, we had to go so long wondering who he killed.
That's right. So yeah, he should have done that, and then it maybe leave us with a cliffhanger on who he killed after that. But,
oh yeah, they're absolutely like that. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes The Walking Dead did, was to leave everyone, because it just some people just lost interest. And then B, it just pissed everyone off that everybody was waiting for this episode, because we were going to find out who was going to meet Lucille, and then we didn't find out. You could have had him killed Glenn and then ended it with Daryl punching it, you know, just something to make you, you know, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
You could have just had the whole thing play out, and we still would have been just as anxious for the season 7 premiere as we would a cliffhanger. Like, trust your fans more than that. We make there are tons of YouTube channels devoted to just discussing your show. So clearly you have some loyal fans. You don't have to use cheap gimmicks like that to keep us waiting. I mean, if you would have done the deed and killed Abraham and Glenn in that season 6 finale, we would have been just as quick to rush to our TVs for the season 7 premiere. Like, how is the group going to deal with this? What happened after he killed them? Blah, you know, I mean, just,
Yeah, and nothing pisses a fan base off more than a cliffhanger, especially an unnecessary cliffhanger.
Right.
So, but that is what it is, and if you want, we'll move on to Phyllis,
sure.
Longtime listener, a great friend of the podcast. She's got something else I think we've touched on before, but we'll run on through it. What if Rick was there to deal with Alpha, the Whisperers, and the Pike deaths? With Rick, would things have been basically the same, better, or much worse?
I mean, we really have the comics to draw on with that, though, because Rick in the comics did have to deal with the Whisperer War.
Yeah.
Well, the Whisperer War, I guess, technically happened after Alpha died, but
Yeah, I think the biggest question here is, would TV show Rick have released Negan to infiltrate and dispatch Alpha?
No.
You don't think he would have?
No. But he didn't in the comics.
God, that's right. It was the kid.
It was that kid that wanted revenge on Rick and thought that he was going to let Negan out, that Negan would, take vengeance and help him. I think the kid, was thinking that Negan's first order of business would be to kill Rick, and had no idea that actually, no, Negan at all this time in that jail cell developed a man crush on Rick and just wanted to earn his grace,
Yeah.
So,
God, how do you think Rick would have reacted once he found out Carol let Negan out?
That is a very interesting question.
I mean, obviously,
God, this is the second time Carol's done some shady schnit behind Rick's back.
Yeah.
I forgave you when you burnt those people at the prison, Carol. What is your problem? Why do you have such an affinity for pulling people out of cells? Because, they were sleeping in jail cells.
Yeah. Oh, God.
You just see the padlock and you had to go back to your old ways?
Oh,
you're going to burn him next, Carol?
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I don't think Rick would have been too happy about that. But then again, I don't know, because Rick's learned to trust Carol, and seeing the end result, which would be Alpha's head brought to him by Negan, I don't know that he would have gotten that mad at Carol. I mean, he probably wouldn't have liked the deceitfulness, but he would have probably, as a leader, understood that sometimes you just have to do what you know is right and what you know is going to work for the better of everyone else. So, I mean, I don't know, man. And in TV show Rick, it's interesting because comic book Rick, after the all-out war, I mean, he was still a force to be reckoned with, but not nearly as much because he was crippled. Because Negan had snapped his leg like a damn twig at the end of All Out War. And so Rick walked with a cane. He had his leg never healed correctly. So it's like, he was kind of permanently slightly handicapped. So he couldn't move as fast. And it's interesting because TV Rick could have probably been more of a badass during the whole Whisperer saga that, comic Rick didn't get to be. I mean, I definitely think that though I did love the Daryl Alpha moments. Alpha had great moments with a lot of characters, but I still think that Rick and Alpha meeting would just be the greatest thing.
Yeah, it would. We definitely missed some good TV gold with that, but it's still been pretty good. So
take your bald ass head on out of here somewhere, Alpha.
Oh boy. All right, we got one from our good friend Derek Patterson.
Hey, what's up, Derek?
Yeah, we've let's see. He's got a couple here. I think this one has kind of got me intrigued. And he says we may have covered this, and we very well may have, but he says since it's been talked about by Sarah and Melissa, but how different would the show be if they had killed Carol instead of Lori in season 3 as they planned?
I don't know, man. I didn't hate Lori as much as everyone did until the whole Shane thing. I think we talked about that last week.
I hated Lori.
Like the Lori, I didn't really hate Lori. I didn't hate that she slept with Shane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think a lot of people instantly started hating her once they found out it's not like she was cheating on Rick. She thought her husband was dead. The world literally ended around you. And for all you know, you and this group of people you're with could be the last damn people on the planet. Of course you're going to find love. That happens a lot, I've actually known people who, and I mean, it's really not. It sounds bad on paper, but when you look at those situations, I mean, I've known people who've had a significant other die, and then through the grief and the time together, they end up down the road getting with a friend of that person. And that friend reminds you of your lost significant other. And I've never lost someone, so I can't really speculate on the psychology of that. But, I didn't hate her for banging Shane. I hated her for her reaction when Rick killed Shane.
Yeah, me too.
You sat in that tent and you told Rick something had to be done about Shane. And one could argue that she wanted him to kick him out. No, I'm sorry, but you pretty much seemed like you were saying we're going to have to take out Shane.
Yep.
So he tries to murder your husband because Rick's not the type to just go take Shane out in the field and kill him. You know that. He struggled killing a stranger who tried to kill him.
Yep.
So, this guy who you tell Rick is insane tries to kill your husband, so your husband kills him. And I think that's where she went off the rails for me and a lot of other fans. But, I don't know. She started kind of coming back around. To me, she still was never more annoying than Andrea. But I don't know, man. How do you think the show would have been if Lori would have stuck around longer?
Well, I don't see Lori turning into like the Rambo character that Carol became. I mean, can you see Lori rescuing everyone at Terminus when they're getting ready to get their heads smashed?
You mean Carol?
Who'd I say?
You said Lori, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I couldn't see Lori.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. The actress that played Andrea's name is Lori Holden, so I'm getting mixed up. So you're saying if Carol would have died.
If Carol died, I couldn't see Lori Grimes turning into like the Rambo that Carol was. So they probably would have all died at Terminus.
I mean, it was pretty done.
I mean, yeah, that would have, I guess, after that, it would have been the Lori show. Who else was not at Terminus? Was
Carol, Tyrese, the baby.
Yeah, so like Carol would have died in the prison. It would have been like, I guess, Lori and
Tyrese and the baby.
Yeah,
I really feel like if Lori would have died, if Lori would have lived and Carol would have died, then I feel like inevitably it would have ended the way it did in the comic. Even if, because spoilers, you got time to tune out. In the comics, Lori dies pretty terribly. She's running away from the prison during the governor's final assault, and she's shot by a character whom now has an entire book series about her. But and they're okay. But she gets shot, and her and the baby both die. Now, I don't know if they would have killed the baby in that way, but I definitely feel like Lori would have still died in the governor's final assault. I feel like she would have still gotten shot running away or something like that. I just feel like the show would have had her like fall, and the baby was fine, but she was dead and all of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like if she would have survived and Carol died, she still would have ended up dying at the season 4 mid-season finale.
She would have got blasted in half.
She still wouldn't have made it out of the prison.
Yep. No, man. But yeah, that was a good one from our good friend Derek Patterson. That definitely would have created a ripple effect. Who knows how far they would have made it.
They would have had to have had Tyrese save everybody, or had another character like Rosita or Daryl or somebody not be with them for some reason and save them from the Terminus thing. I mean, someone would have still saved them, but I mean, because otherwise, you could, like you said earlier, you could just say, well, if Carol didn't live, then they would have all been. I mean, let's not forget they were on the line, getting ready to get their throats slit.
Yep.
When Carol blew that tank up and stopped the process. So I mean, if she wouldn't have been there to do that when she did, I mean, we would have definitely lost a few characters.
Yeah,
all of them.
Yeah, man, definitely a twisty fate that would have been.
I think we got time for one more. Throw one more at me.
All right, well, this is going to be tough. So many great suggestions from so many listeners, and like if we didn't get to one, you're really stoked to have us read. Just copy and paste it.
Please,
in this video.
yes, absolutely.
And do us a favor too. It's an awful big help if you like hashtag what if at the beginning of the comment.
Grabs our attention as we're scrolling a little bit.
And you don't have to, but it is a big help.
Definitely a way to get it on the list.
Yeah.
Find us a good one.
All right, we still have quite a few from Stefan.
Let's jump back to Stefan then. That's fine. If you unless you got someone we haven't read and you want to read theirs.
I think everyone. Let's see. We touched on Owen.
No, we did not touch on Owen.
We touched on him. Derek. Derek got some. I know.
Oh man, made my stupid laugh come out.
Okay, we got one from good buddy Corey Andros.
Corey.
Well, he's actually talking about what we talked about last week about how Lou Temple, who played Axel, did an interview and revealed how he was going to take the Thomas storyline. So, yeah, Corey, if you haven't listened yet, we actually did a whole podcast on that last week, and we thought it would have been pretty
gnarly.
Dope. Yeah,
should have happened
if Axel had been a serial killing madman. So.
It would have made his character make a lot more sense, playing, because, I mean, he just was unbelievably timid and shy, and, it would have made perfect sense for his character to be played the way it was if that would have been revealed. Like, he really was like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Like, he was trying to just get all,
But let's go back to Stefan. This one's kind of interesting. What if Lizzie, we all remember Lizzie, the wacky little girl, and by wacky, I mean,
murderous psychopath, absolutely.
She never died and just ran away after killing Mika and ended up meeting Alpha.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. No,
How wild would that have been?
Oh, my God. She would have, that would have been her crew, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think she would have been a much better Gamma. That's for sure.
Well, I like Gamma. I'm not going to say that. I
mean,
liked
just
Gamma.
as far as
but
being loyal and not turning code.
I was the whole time you were saying that, I was thinking, like, man, what would have been really cool was for her to run away, you know, and Carol tries to kill her but fails, perhaps.
Right.
You know, because then you always leave the opening of, well, Carol spared me, and, you know, she don't want, but like have Carol have tried to kill her but failed, and Lizzie got away and ran into this group. But like later, and because since so much time has passed now, Lizzie would be an adult. Yeah. So we could have had Lizzie reemerge as a villain, which would have been super cool, you know, with the straight up. And I mean, think about how that would have played out with Carol. I mean, you're seeing, you know, Henry died. I mean, that could have been after the Whisperer thing, but yeah, if she would have ended up getting up with the Whisperers, I mean, she would have fit in. She'd have been like beta.
Yeah, and the whole thing Alpha wanted to do as far as like franchising, sending people out to form more Whisperer groups, man. I think Lizzie would have formed her own crew.
Oh, yeah. Well, and she talked to the Whisperers, much in the way that Alpha and definitely now Beta's hearing the Whisperer. I mean, not the Whisperers, the Walkers.
The Walkers,
talk to him. So she would have definitely fit in with a group who treated them like living beings, you know. Lizzie, that would have been a great twist. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Walking Dead has skipped so many good chances because they thought it was too dark. So Carol killing Lizzie needed to happen. We need that darkness in the show, just like we needed Axel to kill Beth. Like, we need the show to be dark, you know? I mean, the comics are dark as hell. We need it to be dark, and that's probably one of our complaints we've used through the years, is that we think that sometimes they try to take the Disney Channel route or the family-friendly route, and it's like, screw that. You got a show about dead people coming back to life and eating people alive. Right. I mean, all lightheartedness is gone. So it needed to happen, but if it didn't happen, and she would have later reemerged as a Whisperer, I mean, could you just imagine her taking her mask off saying, Carol?
Yeah.
And then Lizzie? I mean, God, that would have been so cool.
Yeah, it would have. So, yeah, that's a heck of a what if, Stefan. You laid a lot of good ones down there, but yeah.
It could have really put Carol in an interesting situation because she failed to, and I mean, Lizzie should have, you know, even if it's not her, Lizzie should kill a lot of characters that Carol likes, like whether she's leading a charge or actually the one to do it. Still, Lizzie ends up responsible for the deaths of a lot of people that Carol cares about.
Yeah.
And imagine the drama you could drum up with that. I mean, Carol essentially taking on full responsibility because she had a chance to stop this threat long ago and she failed. And now because of her failure, a lot of people she cares about have died. And now it's basically, and then that would have made a lot of sense, you know, Carol versus Lizzie, like Carol's trying to, and that honestly would have been a great way to wrap up Carol's arc, honestly, if you needed to get Carol off the show. And I mean, I love Melissa McBride. I think that she's awesome. I think she's a great actress, but Carol's been on there for a while. It would have been a very poetic ending for Carol. Yeah. It wouldn't have just felt fruitless and like, oh, we just killed her because it was shock. And it comes full circle. She dies killing Lizzie or whatever, you know.
I mean, imagine like Lizzie describing to Carol, like sawing Henry's head off and putting it on that pike. I mean, that would have been some intense stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that would have been good motivation for Lizzie to have done it too. Like this. Yep. So, you know, Carol tried to kill me, but she's raising this little boy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh my gosh, just so many. That's a great question.
Yeah.
And that was who? Stefan?
That was Stefan again.
Great question, man. Great question. I mean, that would have been a really cool twist of events.
I know.
But we'll podcast tomorrow. We'll have our Patreon exclusive, but I definitely want us to podcast about some of the developments I've seen this weekend. More people saying that this masked figure in the last episode that we saw is going to be Morgan's son returning. At this point, I'm really hoping it's not, because who cares? I mean, it made much more sense in Morgan's story arc for Dwayne to have died. I feel like they'll just do like she took him down and Morgan just freaked out and started slaying zombies. And then what you'll find out was she never actually bit him. And by the time Dwayne freed himself of his mom, Morgan was, long gone being crazy in the woods. And just killing everything that moves.
Yeah, dude, that's going to be a little too far-fetched for me. Maybe they'll make it work, but I'd rather see him go a different route.
I'd rather see it be like Madison or
cool.
Rick's brother would be a cool touch because, we in the comics, we know that he was in Italy or Spain, wasn't it? Was it Spain?
I can't remember, dude.
He was in Europe. He was overseas.
Yeah, he was in Europe.
That would be a cool, and I mean, like that would make sense. Like he's on his way to try to find his brother. Like he could, because Lori mentioned in the beginning of the show that she met Rick through his brother. Mm-hmm. So he's got an attachment to them. He was overseas, and through the apocalypse, it's taken him years to get back to America. He's had to sail, probably with no sailing experience.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense. It's taken him a long time, but he's on the road, and you got to think they're in Virginia. I mean, you go through Virginia to get to Georgia. So he's essentially making his way back to where his his last beacon of hope is perhaps his brother and his family are still alive, and that's where he's going. And he runs across these guys. I think that would be a really cool development.
It would be. It's going to be interesting to see how he turned into a ninja.
Right. And can we keep in mind, though, this is before we've read all these clues. And then, Madison, Dwayne, Rick's brother. Some people have said it'd be Connie, but I mean, I just think it would be dumb. In that short of time, she's adapted the mantra of like this seath wielding, sickle flaying, whatever. So I don't know. I would like to see it be Rick's brother, unless it was Madison. I would have loved to see him. JP and I, a lot of our listeners do not like Madison. JP and I love Madison.
Yeah. I thought she was a great character. I'd love to see her come back on Fear and help turn that right that ship, but
I would have loved to have seen her and Rick, not necessarily as a couple, because I mean Rick and Michonne I liked. I mean I think that they worked very well together, and but I would have loved to have seen Madison and Rick, because they're kind of like the opposite sex counterparts of each other. I mean, same as Rick. She started off and she just adapted this brutality, but at the same time has still got a somewhat level head. I liked Madison. A lot of people said the best thing to happen to the show was her dying, but I disagree. I thought she was a great character.
Who knows, man? Maybe Travis survived getting shot and falling out of a helicopter, and he made his way up to D.C.
Nobody liked Travis. And again, not the actor's fault. I've seen him in other stuff, and he's been great. Just the character of Travis was very square, just kind of, And then, so I don't know, man. It'd be interesting. I want Alicia getting back to being a badass. I wouldn't mind if it was, her.
Yeah.
If it was Alicia, but I don't know. Like I said, I think Rick's brother or Madison would have been my top picks, but a lot of people thinking it's going to be Dwayne. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow.
Wait,
in the meantime, please, if you made it this far, hopefully you don't hate us too bad. So feel free to hit that subscribe button. If nothing else, give us a like. It helps us out a ton with the algorithms. Feel free to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thepodcastingdead. Even the dollar patrons get an extra 8 podcasts a month.
Yep.
And those are more personal. If you're a longtime listener and you enjoyed our Random Rambling Wednesdays and or Mail Call, that's what our Patreon casts are. They're much more us talking about life and just everything. We might get on The Walking Dead. We might get on Sasquatch.
Yeah.
We visit the Barn of Pleasures quite frequently. But you can't beat $1 a month. You get 8 extra podcasts. And we are going to start giving some incentive for the higher tier patrons, but we will never take away the extra podcast for even the dollar patrons. So that's something that'll stay. It's not like you'll sign up and then we'll be like, thanks. Whoop. Now you got to do the $5 to get. You'll get those extra podcasts every week, but we might start doing. We've been talking about video podcasts for a long time, but I finally think we're at a point we could do it. We might start doing dollar patrons get the podcast, whereas $5 patrons get the podcast and it's a video podcast. Where they can actually see us and so. But lots of exciting things happening amidst the coronavirus. We still have been able to get a logo done. We got to see the proofs, hopefully, this week.
Yeah, putting together some mystery boxes for the patrons to send out. Also going to be doing some giveaways right here on the YouTube channel, so everybody going to get some love.
SoundCloud and other
SoundCloud,
iTunes,
I forget
wherever you're listening.
We're spread out, man.
Yeah.
We're spread out now.
I heard if somebody was having trouble finding us on Spotify, which I had a lot of trouble getting that going to begin with, so we'll check into that. But I know we're still on SoundCloud, I know we're still on YouTube, and I know we're still on iTunes. So
yes.
But either way, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you for joining us to discuss some Walking Dead what-ifs. Have a happy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whichever day you're listening. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
Excuse me. And we're the Podcasting Dead.